Okay, so good day to everyone. We're here on page Tzadik Gimel. And we're middle of the page, I believe the third paragraph of Oisei Hadover Kishiyovei Tzeduki Okaroi. But before that, just briefly, the Rabbi Yoel is
we were to start at the paragraph right before that.
Okay. Okay, good, thank you. We'll do that in a moment. Rabbi Yoel is responding to the accusation of this accusation of people who are not from being Rishoyim and all of that. He's responding and he's saying that in halacha there's a clear halacha you're supposed to be makarev a yid, and so he said that these people, referring to the Satmars, those, not all of them, but those that feel this way, they don't use their brains. Basically, they say, I don't want to hear because you're a kofer. Since you're a kofer, anything you say is kfira. That was the line of thought here. So that's what we're up to. Let's go inside. Kishiyovei kofer, the yovi hoichochos, hachi chazokos. A kofer will come and bring very strong proof. Shabtai aim in the Shemayim chas v'shalom. The Torah is not from heaven, God forbid. V'lo yiyeh li shum pirchas alei chochos shaloi. And I won't have any questions on the proofs that you bring. Avol became yeh etzli. Nevertheless, I will feel baruch kashemesh, as clear as the sun is. Shetayim el Shemayim. That Torah is from heaven. Ki amunah shel Yehudi b'Hashem yisbarach, because the faith of a Jew in Hashem, uveteros in his Torah, he nitua is planted b'nafsheinu in our souls, omok very deep, uveteikav godel, and with great potency. Shegam ruches hanimshachis hachi gedolim. That even the winds, the Shabbos, even the strong winds that blow, the great strong winds that blow, which and Rabbi Yoel says in the parentheses, I refer to ra'aya sichlios, intellectual argumentation and positions, hachi chazokos, that are very, very solid. Lo yoziz oiso ziz kolshehu, it won't budget an iota, right? A yid who's a maimin in Hashem and Torah, someone will come along and give you the best proofs that it's not that way. You'll say, have a nice day, my friend. You can't answer, you don't have answers to refute his arguments. It makes no difference. By you, it's ingrained in your core essence. So, but let's paragraph. The same thing. Kishiyovi tzeduki or karoyim. They'll come on apikoid is called a tzeduki or a karoyim. They deny the Torah Shabbal Peh. Yovi oichocho, and they'll bring proof. Asheraka Torah Shabbasav nitum nashamayim. That only the written Torah is from heaven. Whereas relate Torah Shabbal Peh chas v'sholom. Torah Shabbal Peh is not. V'oisa adova kishiyovi mishuhu v'yovi oichocho is mishas u'barishonim. Say also, same as also. If someone will bring proofs from Gemara and the Rishonim, Asher Abayseinu Achreinim Tov Chas v'Shalom, that the later rabbis made a mistake, God forbid, Beis Halacha. Hainu, the Rabbi Yoel says in the brackets, Shegamim Hu Yedei Shebesifri Achreinim Kos V'Ferish Halacha Yikach V'Kach. Meaning, even if he knows that in the later Achreinim, it says clearly the Halacha is so, Ela Shemei V'Yirayim Arishonim D'Loik Achreinim. He brings proof from the Rishonim that it's not like the Achroinim. U'kamesha also Balat Kufa Hagdoila. The Balat Kufa Hagdoila, he that's what he did. Shechelek al Rambam v'chol ha'poiskim v'oisa ism l'toyim chas v'sholem. He brings proof from the Rishonim against the Rambam, and he says they are all mistaken. L'toyim chas v'sholem. Mipnei sheyesh le'irayim Yerushalmi. And Rabbi Yoel says, I'll write about this later. So he just brought to us 2 or 3 examples. He did going up shita in all of these situations. It's self-understood. All of their proofs, yifulu etzli, it won't impact me. Shum suffik, any doubt or doubt of doubts. That the words of the later rabbis, heim emes lamite, is true. He says over here in the parentheses there are different rules in how to make a ruling. So he says if we, this is true based on those rulings. Because we are believers. Whatever a future student will come up with a novelty in Torah, nitin leMoshe miSinai. It was already given in a general way to Moshe on Sinai. This emunah is also planted in our souls, very deep and very potent. So therefore, it won't budge you an iota. Let me finish the whole hemsha, the thinking, and then we'll go over it again, slowly. However, when someone will come along, and he'll explain to me, he believes in all the words of the rabbis, and the fact that he does it in a different way, according to me, my opinion, it's forbidden. Well, if it's because he has proof from another siman in Shulchan Aruch, or in another response to the Sefer, he'll bring support to his explanation. Nevertheless, I will argue that since until now, our group has accustomed itself. Hisraglagnu means we custom ourselves. Lefarish, top of page Tzadik Dalet. Lefarish, halacha pleinis b'oifenacher, a particular law in a different way. Lochein eineni reitzi lischashev im shumei chocha neged ma asher galti. I don't want to take into consideration any argument different than what I accustom myself from youth on. If he'll argue this, you'll have to enroll him in a psych ward. Yoel is very, very graphic in his words. Basically saying, you're an idiot. Okay, I'm sorry to say. He's saying this argument is idiocy. It's stupid. Excuse me, it's ridiculous. In other words, just the fact that you were raised a certain way means that, and later you find out about Torah sources that it's not that way, doesn't mean you're right. And there's a difference, Hillel, between faith in God and faith in Torah versus things that you were sold a bill of goods as a kid that you have to hate non-religious people and their Rishoyim and all of that. And therefore, when someone, a Lubavitcher, comes to you and says, wait a second, the way you were taught is wrong, you say, you're an apikoides, you're a Shabtai Tzvi, and therefore everything you say, regardless and what proofs you have, is heretical because you're a heretic. So Yoel says that is stupid, it's foolish, and you belong in a mental home. It's not normal. It's not Yiddish thinking. Let's continue. I think he might say this in this paragraph, what I just said. In the first case, the reason I don't want to take into consideration any proof that's against Torah, skip the brackets, that's exactly what I just said. It's because of your great faith in God Almighty and His Torah. Klema. You see the word bittul, Moshe, is in bold. Because you have bittul, you have humility, you put a self, your understanding, for God's understanding in the Torah. Therefore, that is velvel. That's Torah. That's truth. In other words, Yonason, it's a very important nekuda. When you're coming from a place of bittul, it's genuine. You're not coming and saying that's the way I grew up, and therefore everyone is not religious is bad and all of that and other such examples is not coming from bittul. It's coming from your yesh. It's coming from you decided who are you. Even if the you is a big group. You have proof in Torah, 100% proof. And most Rabbonim and most rabbis agree, I'll hear it. But when most rabbis don't agree, and you're an exception to the rule, and your argument is the average kid, right? When Chaim Dalfin printed his book, Satmar in Lubavitch. So in Eichler's on 13th Avenue, I came in one day and the books were thrown off the shelf onto the floor. Why? Because how can I write about that relationship knowing that I'll bring up sensitive issues? So the little kids, 12, 13, 14, 15, they have nothing better to do. They go in, the store owner doesn't see, and they throw it off the shelf. For that matter, someone, a Lubavitcher, I was sitting with him and with a few others at a Farbrengen, and he went off against one of my books. And I asked him in public, and he was very humiliating. And I asked him, did you read what I wrote? He wouldn't answer. You know why? Because I know he didn't read it. But as soon as he heard one word, what that book or the chapter contained, I'm an apikoidus. It's the same thing. So this isn't just, I'm saying this isn't just, Satmar, Lubavitch have also their shtick. Everyone has shtick. Everyone has shtick. So that's why when we learn such things, when we're learning this sefer, this kuntras, this Meine Chochem, you have to really remove yourself, whether you're a chassid, a litvak, a svat. We're learning the context, and that's what we want to see if it makes sense, and etc. Who I am, what I am, that's not relevant right now. In this case, it happens to be that Rabbi Yoel was approached by people who told him that the Satmar Hasidim are making them crazy, are making them problems, and all of that. So he's responding to them. But the truth is, and like I told you, and I'll never forget it, until my last day on earth, I never forget what happened. And the person never apologized, and he could have. He was so sure that I am vicious because I mentioned someone who made the Rebbe problems. Therefore, how can I even bring his name into a book? That's what we're living in, where people become passionate with an extremity that's totally outrageous, not right. And the Rebbe, the people who made our Rebbe the biggest problems, and really made him problems, and really did things that were embarrassing and all that, he never said a bad word against him. Never. He disagreed with their shita, but not personally. And this is one of the points in this kuntris and why it's so important. You got a proof? Let's go. Bring it to the table. Let's talk about it. Rabbi Yoel was a ish sichli. He was a chassid and everything else. But he looked at everything with seichel. Let's look if intellectually this is an honest argument or it's just an emotional argument. And if it's emotional, then it doesn't belong in this realm. And again, so you might ask, why am I allowed to be emotional towards believing in God in this Torah? So Rabbi Yoel says here, why? Because that's coming from your great bittul. It's a take of a bittul. If it's coming from your bittul to Hashem and to His Torah, it's legitimate. If it's coming from your yesh or other, psychological situations and all that, then it's not holy. Then it's yesh. You could dress it up, you could be creative, but it's yesh. And believe me, there's, in the world that we live in, this is very, very true, that there are entire movements and entire psychologies, entire philosophies within and without the Jewish world that do this. And this is harmful. I'll give you another example. These are stam, one of my daughters once dated someone, and she, liked him, and he was, an upgrade for her as far as his commitment. And they had a discussion about educating the kids. And my daughter said that, she would like them to play an instrument. I think she said not a violin or a guitar. I forget what. And he said his Rosh Hashiva, Chabad Rosh Hashiva, told him that's outrageous. And if that's the case, he cannot continue meeting her. I mean, it is, right? You're shaking your head, Moshe. But, and this Rosh Hashiva is a very serious person, a Talmud Chacham, and a Chassidish guy, I'm telling you. Again, if this guy who dated my daughter was saying the truth, and that was the case, and I believe it was, in certain areas it was Mishagas. What, you'd rather smoke dope or go to bars and pick up girls and do other crazy things than play a guitar? What, are you out of your mind? What is so outrageous in playing a guitar? You know? So everyone comes up with their idea. And in other words, and if you play a guitar, that shows that this girl is not Chabad enough. She's not plugged into the essence. Because how could she want her kids to play a guitar? It happened. What I'm telling you happened. It's not, I'm making up. So what I'm saying is, and that's one of the things, learning by Rabbi Yoel for years. I'm so thankful to him that he taught us this. He knocked this Narishkeit out of our head. He knocked it out. He showed us how stupid this was and ridiculous. This imposing and extreme. You know, if the Torah says it, on the other hand, if the Torah says it and Chazal say it, he was all the way for it. For example, I once met him in 770. I think it was the first time I came back from Shlichus after I left in 84 to Marin County. Yud Shvat 85 was the first time I came back to recharge my batteries, to be with the Chassidim and with the Rebbe and all that. And he sees me and he smiles, it gives me Shalom Aleichem. He would walk over, he was a warm person. And all of a sudden he becomes very stern. He says, "No." And I'm making him my beds. Like, what? What did I do? What did I do, you know? And he sees I'm not getting it. So he goes like this, my jacket, like this. He noticed I had my left button over my right. And Arizal says you should have right over the left. Now, he grew up by a father, Berfol Khan, who was a chassid from Russia, and I believe those type of things were also ingrained in them, like it's fasting on Yom Kippur, you understand? I'm not sure it is that way, but you know, that has a source. And he's saying, we Chabad follow the Arizal, we Hasidim follow the Arizal, therefore, this should be important, don't put your left over right, okay? But outside of bringing a source, and even that, you know, it wasn't done like, leave the shul, leave 770 until you get a jacket that has your right button over your left button. You know, this is where it becomes mishagas. So let's go back to the text. Rabbi Yoel is writing over here that, yes.
I just want to say that, I'm sure we all experience this, but I see so many times in shul, in general, but in particular in shul, just as an example, some of those people, they get so
worked up
about something which is like, it's not even just it's a minig. It's like it's not even it's like a custom, like people get very. I would almost say that in a way yes, like minhagim. Sometimes people, they get very worked up about it, like, you know, like certain things in the shul, like it has to be this way, but really it's not even just it's a minig. It's like a, I don't know, it's like a certain, you know, it's like that's the way they did it, you know, back, except that I see this all the time.
Yes, and that's why we have a rabbi, a rav, and who hopefully is on the right page, and he should decide what not, and that's all. Otherwise, you're going to have chaos. Everyone becomes, like when someone makes a mistake, he's about Koreh, and you have 55 people in shul correcting him. Be quiet. One person should correct him. 55 people, you have to make this chaos in the shul. It's, first of all, you're embarrassing him. You're pushing embarrassing the person.
But what I'm not like just to say what I'm talking about. Some of those people I see certain people, they're so the shul experience is so ingrained in them that sometimes it comes before God. In other words, like how things are supposed to be in shul. It's like if you looked at it from a real sources, etc. It's like their behavior comes before, it's like that's what they want. That's what they, it's like almost like they worship shul.
Right. And I hear you, and I want to just say a story to support that brief story. It was 1945, and the previous Rebbe had the Seder upstairs, and there were some Hasidim there, like usual. Rabbi Nissim Mendel, who was a secretary to the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe was there too, and he told over the story. They invited a guest that wasn't there and didn't know, how they conduct themselves, really, and he dipped a piece of his matzah into either soup or whatever. And the older Hasidim of the Rashab were there, and they freaked out. And it's in the Rebbe's house. And the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, saw there's a commotion. He didn't know what the commotion is at the table. So he asked, what's the commotion? So they were now in a bind, They didn't want to really say because they're embarrassing, but one of them, maybe said on like this, what I'm saying? He told the Frierdiker Rebbe that someone did shruya, right? Matzah shruya, soaking, right? So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, it's such a powerful story and a must remember story. Shruya is a minig. By some. Embarrassing a yid that his face turns colors and you spilled his blood is a daraisa. You understand? And that's the same thing. I'm saying that for what you said, Moshe. The shula hin, shula her. If you bring a person, you embarrass them, it's the biggest aveda. It's worse than anything else in shul. So I think this is a message that the shul, the rabbanim, and the gaboyim have to bring to people's attention. I don't care what pedigree they come from. Chill out. Relax. There's a rabbi here, there's a rafi, there's a gabbai here. Just take it easy. And I understand where they're coming from because I come from that place. I grew up that way. I understand it. Yoni comes from that place. Growing up in these, frum communities and areas, shul it is a very integral part of being a person, of being a yid. You're going to shul, you're running to shul. Everything is about shul. And all the fights are in shul, and the Lashon Haras are in shul, and the Simchas are in shul. It's like when you're at home, it's boring. Like, who are you going to fight with, your wife? But in shul, two guys can get at each other. On and on. But it's wrong. It's wrong to embarrass anyone. So don't give me your shul pedigree. It's like I enjoy shuls that are nostalgic and still keep the old boards and chairs and tables. That's my personal, I love that. Well, in Crown Heights, where you had a lot of these shuls, just as in Yerushalayim, they're gone. They've been fixed up. For example, the Orach Chaim shul, right, in the old city, I went there 25 years ago and still saw it the way it was from 500 years ago, and I'll never forget that. And I talk about it. So for me, it's a rich experience. Go there today, you can hardly see anything. You have to look through a glass to see the old wall, which they say led down to a mikveh. But go into the shul, it's fixed up. So to me, it's lost its taste. But for others who did it, it didn't. So who am I to go legislate how they should make their shul? Baruch Hashem, I chap the Rhein. You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that I'm just supporting what you're saying, Moshe. So let's go back to the text, because I do want to learn a little more. So he says over here like this. So when it comes, now look what he says here. Mashenki benit nasheni. We're in the first paragraph on Tzadik Dalet, fourth line. Mashenki, conversely, benit nasheni, the second situation. Kisheineni rotze lischashev im shumay chocha siklis. When a person takes the attitude, I don't want to deal and hear any intellectual argument and position. Neged hapirush ugalti bi. This is exactly what you said, Moshe. Against what I've been accustomed to from youth. Says Rabbi Yoel, and I told you this before, it's not coming from your bittul, it's not coming from your humility side, it's coming from your ego side, your gaiva side. My gaiva is so great. I am not willing in any situation to agree that what you're presenting is truth. Even when there's great, strong arguments that what I'm hearing is true. The dugma now, ain't the Moshel Balmer. Rabbi says, what I'm telling you now isn't just a parable. This is the very moral. Let's see what he says. The fact that we were not persuaded by the proofs of Shabtai Tzvi, Mendelssohn, or the arguments of Mendelssohn, famous Kaifer, V'yoid Kaiferim u'maskilim, and other Kaiferim u'maskilim, because those things that they said, or also they did, they were contrary to clear halacha that have been ruled in the latest poskim. And they agreed. We don't accept what the Rashba said. We don't accept what this, right? We disagree. Elo sheiviu echokas l'divrayim mishasa mirshayim. You see what they did? Did you know this, Chevra? What did they do? They brought proofs, and by the way, from Shas and Berein. I heard, I don't want to say who, a very famous lawyer, I'll give you a hint. I heard him use this argument about patrilineal descent. I heard it on the radio about 15, 20 years ago. And later I found out, he argued that according to the Shas and the Rishonim, a child is Jewish even if the mother isn't Jewish, as long as the father's Jewish. And he's clever, and he came up with arguments. Right? There's only one problem. We don't rule from Shas, we rule from the Achroinim. So he disregarded the Achroinim. Right? So you can come up and be matama, like we learned earlier, sheretz. You can find arguments to make kosher a creep and a creature that's tomei. Why? Because in Shas, you find support for it. Well, we don't rule from Shas. And we don't rule from Rishonim. The Ramban and the Ritva on the Gemara are wonderful commentaries, but they're not poskim. They're not halachic authorities. The Rambam is, the Rif is, the Beis Yosef is, etc. Then later the Alter Rebbe, the Mishneh Berurah, the Aruch HaShulchan. So what Yoel's writing here, I remember it like now. I was sitting here, I said, I don't believe this, how he's, and he was making good arguments. The only problem is the Achreinim disagree with him. And we paskin like the Achreinim. Let's continue. Okay, Chochesh Balat Kufa Gdula B'Yerushalmi Shamadina Aschalta de Geula. The one who wrote about Kufa Vagdoila writes for Yerushalmi that the Medina of 1948, the state of Israel, it's in the gather, it's in the category of the beginning of the Geula. Now this was a very hot contested issue, might still be today, but 1948, and this was a big issue amongst the Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe, as well as other Rabbanim, took the opinion, God forbid. It's great that we have a state of Eretz Yisrael and we have a place to go and everything else, and you have to bring people and absolutely. But don't tell me it's the beginning of Geula. He says, if you look at the Rambam, the Rambam tells us how Geula will be, and Geula is with the Shibud Golius. when the gatherings will be, right? So how can you tell me that we're still in Golos and it's the beginning of Geula? So it's contrary to the ruling of the Rambam. In this our situation, since this argument is against Emunah, someone will come along and is going to put the sun in the sky, like Yeshua did. He made the sun stop, but someone's going to be able to do this. And therefore, it's going to contradict a certain halacha or minig that is found in the latest of the latest achreinim. That's been accepted by Yidden. We wouldn't listen to him. Such a person has a din of a mesis amadiach, meaning someone who seeks to convince and influence people on the wrong path of Torah. Let me just finish this paragraph. Conversely, in our case, when we show a explicit din Shulchan Aruch, and you say, I see the din Shulchan Aruch. He's referring to the Satmar. I see that there's a din Shulchan Aruch that if a tinnik shenishma, you have to be makar of them. But nevertheless, I don't want to do it rak mitzad. Why? Because ein masim imashkofa shel kanois. This doesn't fit into my hashkofa of zealotry, of kanois. Williamsburg, like we were raised in Williamsburg. This comes. This is not This is not coming because he believes so strongly in God and his Torah. Kiyim rather, it's because he says, I believe in the Satmar flag of Kanois. Hey, wait a minute. The Satmar flag of Kanois is God and his Torah. It's a particular shita of some. So don't tell me, but don't tell me that this is Torah. This is you, Williamsburg. Your group decided that this is what you want to do. Claim it. Cain, the foundational thinking of those that argue so, who lay ha-Torah, it's not the Torah that they're using as their argument. Kim hachuk shalahem. That's what it's their group. It's Gaiva. My party. It's my party. It's my party. It has to be this way. Inyan shel maflega. It's exactly the word I just used. This is the concept of a party. So we'll finish here for today, but this is a very, very important nekuda that we have to, again, we're reading this and learning this about this situation that happened 40 years ago, etc. But I want you to understand, it applies today in every situation. Has to be my party. If it's not my party, it's treif. Yes, Zionism.
Yeah, I remember, calling in 770, and I had the privilege of sitting in a chair once or twice. And when you were talking now, and it sounds like Yoyo. That was Yoyo. I thought Yoyo was there.
Yeah, something rubbed off. Baruch Hashem, something rubbed off. I try to keep him alive, to talk things that I learned from him, because he did so much. Yeah, Moshe.
Just want to say that a number of years ago, Rabbi Yol came to Beit Shemesh. He came to, I should have mentioned this earlier, he came to Ramat Beit Shemesh Bet.
Yeah.
This is going back approximately, let's say, 2005, 2006, approximately maybe 2004.
Okay.
And he came and he gave, what was it? I think it was in the Vishnitz Monsey Shul before they had finished the building.
Right.
He spoke like, he must have spoken for like 2 hours with a little bit of a break in between. The room was packed. all the guys from Rav Shapira of the Gazetzna from Kodesh, he was there, and people, it was like standing room only.
Yeah.
It was standing room only. I'm just sharing that.
Yeah. He was a person that can explain well, and he wasn't he was a Bal Seichel, saying everything was Seichel. By the way, he did that for 10 years in Belgium. It's going to be, I wrote up the report that from Rabbi Shabtai Slavitsky from Belgium, where he said that he was invited to teach Sfas Emes in the Gerish Stiebel, in the Gerish Shul, and Ava Shalom from the Vishnitz in the Vishnitz Shul in Belgium. He says there were 500-600 people at each one, and then he would bring to 4, 5, 6 in the morning, and he said he was on the dais, and there were 2 Litvish Rosh Hashivas that from the community, and he overheard one say to the other, "I think we should stop teaching Gemara to our students and start teaching them Chassidus." Baruch Hashem. Anyway, Chevra, have a great day. Good, you got me into learning, and because whatever, I was a little shaken up this morning with different health issues, but Baruch Hashem. So Yasher Koyach and Tiskel Mitzvahs, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.
You should be well.
Amen.